I know lots of people with money who don't seem wealthy.
If you're not growing, you're dying.
Sometimes people just hold on to it because they're afraid of going back down to lower numbers in their bank account.
Wealth is kind of this inside game first and foremost. It's a state of being.
Were you actually keeping things together for the business?
Your bank account doesn't determine your destiny.
And why do you think that's important to wealth?
You know, I didn't really feel a lot of purpose to it. It was just survival.
You will not be wealthy today. You will be wealthy in the future.
Right. That's because financial planning is actually the antithesis of building wealth. That's just a detrimental, terrible path.
How do you get out of that kind of exceptional trap? Okay, Garrett. So a lot of people talk about wealth. They seem to associate it with money, but I know lots of people with money who don't seem wealthy.
That's because financial planning is actually the antithesis of building wealth.
Okay.
That we've become indoctrinated that it's all about numbers on a piece of paper, not translating to our quality of life, to our life design, to our family, to our friends, to the richness in relationships. And wealth isn't just one dimensional. It's not just net worth.
Okay.
It's 5 dimensions. It's 5 tracks. And I'm going to tell you about those 5 tracks. And then the one key factor that determines wealth above all else. You can be rich and not be very wealthy. The reason is the first track, yes, it is money. It's finance. It's hard to be wealthy with no money. True. I mean, there are people that maybe live in, societies where, I think there's an island where just nobody's really touched. And so they don't have money and they could be totally happy. They could feel totally wealthy. But in modern day society, money's a part of it. The second thing, though, is purpose. Mm-hmm. And in particular, I call it soul purpose, SOUL. It's your values, what you deem important. It's your abilities. It's also what you're passionate about. When you combine those things for the highest context of living, that's soul purpose, SOUL. And when we have purpose, we feel wealthier. Also, our mindset or mentality. Like if you're always in fear, but you have a ton of money, if you're always frustrated, but you have a lot of money, if scarcity is the greatest destroyer of wealth, there's no luck or saving or discipline or rate of return that can save someone that's stuck in scarcity. So if we have a mindset of abundance, where it comes from innovation and ingenuity and possibility and value creation, that's critical. Also just our physical well-being, right? Like our health. The saying is said over and over again, someone with their health has 1,000 dreams, someone without has but one. And so how we feel, the energy that we have. I know that in 2023, when I was having kidney issues and had insomnia, didn't feel very wealthy, even though I had a good amount of money in my bank accounts. Yeah. It was just really stressful. And then finally, our social life. Man, when you have a good community, when you have a good tribe, when you have great friends, when you have family, like that, there's a richness in relationships. So it's not that you're going to be perfect in all 5 of these tracks. It's that you're going to have 2 factors. Mm-hmm. Number 1 is depth. Depth is that you could be present. Depth is really your ability to be intentional. But you also want to have harmony. Harmony is related to presence as well, but it's just that you feel fulfilled. You have a sense of calm. You can be in the moment, right? So depth might mean that you're not totally balanced here, because you might have moments where we took 63 days in Italy. I wasn't really, building my financial fortress, even though my firm was doing well when I was gone. Uh-huh. It was more about just that connection with my kids uninterrupted. It was the first time in my marriage that we had spent 63 straight days, because I didn't take a trip to speak somewhere or go to an event and learn. It was just that we were together. And so it was intentional. It allowed me to be slowed down a little bit, allowed us to have long meals and sit and have cappuccinos and have great conversations and play cards and go to the pool and take day trips and see the Leaning Tower of Pisa or whatever it might be. So balance isn't what the aim is. Because there's other times where it's just like I'm writing books and I'm super into that process and I'm investing more time during that time. But I'm also have these like rules that if I'm gone more than 4 days in a month, I take a day off during the week so I can have that time with my family. So I could take that time to relax and rejuvenate. Yeah. So if rich means that you've got money. Right? And who defines rich? I mean, I guess it depends on where you live and who you're around. And some of the problem is some people think that the only solution is you've got to have more. There's no place for most people, especially in the United States, to feel content. Now, that's different than complacent. Complacent is where you're not doing anything. There isn't fulfillment. There isn't a level of joy. It's just like resting and not being in the game of value creation.
Yeah.
Where content is, I'm happy with what I have. I'm okay with where I am. We're addicted to growth, right? That's an addiction for a lot of people. You hear the saying, if you're not growing, you're dying.
Yeah.
But what they're typically talking about is growth in something like net worth. Right? And you could have a time where your net worth goes up, but your joy goes down because you're exhausted. You know, I go think back to 2006. In 2006, I had my business partners die in a plane crash.
Yeah.
And so I just spent 4 months of doing almost nothing but work. I didn't feel connected to my family. I didn't see them very often because I was just trying to keep it all together. And I'm working relentlessly to keep this thing together. And I just got to the place where I couldn't make simple decisions. I was gaining weight. I was exhausted. So I was spending more time at the office, but getting less done.
Yeah. And with that, were you actually keeping things together for the business?
I mean, it's tough because the whole team's grieving.
Yeah.
And that grieving process, because this was 2 of the 4 partners, you know, they didn't know what to do. And I didn't really know what to do to help them.
Yeah.
You know, all I knew to do was like, keep pushing through, do the radio show, show up to the office, stay late, you know, pick up the extra work that, you know, these guys were prolific guys. And so all of a sudden this is a major hole in the organization. We had 3 offices. So yeah, it wasn't working. And it meant that, you know, I didn't really feel a lot of purpose to it. It was just survival. Yeah. I didn't feel, my mindset was like just tired, you know. My health was declining because I wasn't working out anymore. The 25 pounds I put on wasn't muscle. It was being exhausted at the end of the day and getting a sundae from McDonald's and, you know, chomping that down for the sugar rush to get a little bit of those endorphins and then feeling bad about it afterwards. It was a lack of sleep. I mean, I just let the circumstance felt so big that I didn't know what to do. So I just kind of escaped into work.
Yeah. Cause I feel like it's kind of that Stephen Covey, you know, sharpen your axe type thing where a lot of times it's hard for us to perceive the ability to take time off to sharpen our axe. And we just keep going with a dull axe.
Yeah.
So let's break down, because that's a very interesting concept of, you know, money is not wealth.
Right.
So
money is really a store of value, first off, right?
Okay.
It's how we store value. It's a man-made efficient tool to exchange with one another, right? It's much more effective than bartering. Bartering is like, hey, I'll give you 6 chickens for a goat. No, how about my son for that cow? You know, I mean, it's like that was really inefficient. So it became more efficient, but it also became confusing.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are like, I want more money, but they don't know how to get more money. So if you want more money, let's call that financial capital. There's really 2 more precious forms of capital that drive it. First is our mental capital. It's ideas. It's our wisdom or knowledge. It's tools. It's insights. It's strategy, right? That's our mental capital.
Yeah.
And if we know a lot, but we don't share that, it doesn't necessarily lead to money. You can have someone that's really intelligent, but if they keep that to themselves because they're afraid if they share their ideas, they'll be stolen, it doesn't actually help them. And then what we have to really look at is relationship capital, right? Relationship capital is everything from people to our network, right? To mentors or friends or clients or family, our tribe. So there's this bridge between mental and relationship capital. One thing you could call that bridge is business. Business is how we take our ideas to improve someone's life. And so that's how we serve someone or we solve problems or we add value. And the more value we add, the byproduct is more money. So really the easiest way to say that is dollars, they follow value.
Gotcha.
Right? And so you could have someone that maybe wins the lottery. You can have someone that marries into money. Right? You could have
someone born
inheritance, right?
Yeah, inheritance.
Like these are all kind of more luck than they are skill.
Yeah.
Right? And so, yeah, you could end up with money, but does that lead to happiness? Now, I think that money's really good at renting happiness. Like I know when I buy a new vehicle, there's an excitement to it.
Gotcha.
And I might show people,
but
for the
just
first
like
few weeks.
And you say renting on purpose because it is short term,
right? It's not sustainable by itself.
Gotcha.
I think of money as a terrible solo artist, but as a great companion.
Okay.
Right? A great companion to the other factors.
Yeah.
You know, to basically, if we have that purpose, if we have the right mindset, like if we could see leisure as a worthwhile activity. But if we're addicted to just making more, but don't have these other aspects of our life, I guess the question becomes this: are we truly wealthy?
Yeah.
You know, there's people that have money and not much else. Like, I think money can be a great thing. It's a great way to reward our value. It's a great way to tap into other people's value.
Yeah.
Right? It can be extraordinarily efficient. But I'll say it this way: your money doesn't determine your potential, and your bank account doesn't determine your destiny. It's just a snapshot in time.
Yeah.
It's just a snapshot in time. And if you don't know how to invest, for example, if you're just confused about that, you might speculate and lose. So it might be a very temporary situation. Right?
Yeah. Or the opposite. Sometimes people will just hold on to it because they're afraid of, you know, going back down to lower numbers in their bank account.
Right.
And then nothing happens with it.
They might scrimp and save and sacrifice, right? And all those 3 S's lead to scarcity.
Yeah.
It's just hold on to what you got, take what you can. And part of it's because people believe in this very finite pie, that if one person takes a slice, that means there's less for the rest of the people over here, right? But I believe in a more infinite pie, that if value is at the center, the pie continues to expand. Because even if someone takes a slice, we could bake a bigger pie. Meaning there's more value. We build upon that value. So when someone learned how to create blueprints for a house, other people could then learn from that blueprint and improve upon it.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, housing got better, right? It wasn't just the very few skilled that knew. It was like all of a sudden that was translated. And that's what education really is about, is how do we support and share so that we get more effective with our resources. Now, if we're inefficient with resources, then what we got is, you know, loss and sloppiness. And this happens all the time. Think about it. If people overpay on tax.
Yeah.
Or if they overpay on interest. Or if they have like non-performing fees with their investments, or if they just don't have good insurance design. These 4 things can lead to inefficiency. And that inefficiency is money that's slipping through the cracks. And if they think, well, I'm just going to work harder, right? They do that hard work, but they really don't have a good philosophy of what money is, how to be a steward over it, what to do with it. Then what could happen is that could still lead to bankruptcy.
Yeah.
That could still lead to frustration. That could still lead to scarcity. I don't have enough. There isn't enough. I've got to do more. And so wealth is kind of this inside game first and foremost. It's a perspective.
Yeah.
Right? It's a state of being. It's when we can be present, when we can find joy, when we can find fulfillment. And some people in the pursuit of money, they have no presence. Because it's always about the future, never enjoying today.
Oh, gotcha.
Right? Or it's always about the past and holding on to what we have.
Yeah.
And it's governed by fear. Fear of loss, fear of missing out. It's governed by greed. Hey, I don't have enough. I've got to take more. And it gets people to make irrational decisions where they're not thinking in value creation, but instead of value creation, they think in value extraction.
Yeah.
That's taking from someone.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, that's just a detrimental, terrible path.
Yeah. I mean, you've had a number of partners over the years who, you know, get stuck in that mindset, and then it becomes a push for them to try to grab everything, and they're grasping at things, and it ruins relationships and all kinds of stuff.
Right. I want partners that bring like a tailwind, right? They help move things forward. And when people start to feel like a victim, or they don't know what to do, they start to hold on to what they can. They be a headwind. They start justifying how you know, I deserve this. You owe that. I don't understand why you don't give me this. And it's like, well, I love to give when someone else gives. Like, I remember I always used to love to pay for the meal.
Yeah.
And I love it when it's unexpected. Hey, I like to do this.
Yeah.
As soon as it becomes expected, it feels like an entitlement, right?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that's no more fun. You know, it's like, great. I guess everybody's got short arms and deep pockets. I think a lot of the world has wealth confused to this thing. They think that wealth comes down to your balance sheet. Your balance sheet is simply your assets versus your liabilities. So liabilities can be things like loans and taxes, right? It could be different expenses that happen. And the assets could be anything like a business or a piece of real estate, right? It could be a portfolio. Those are all assets. But if we think the best thing to do is to be cheap just so we could build more assets by lowering our liabilities, we don't see that there's different types of liabilities, okay? The easy ones to see are the destructive ones. Here's a destructive liability. You buy a motorcycle that you don't have the money for, and now you have a loan, and it's hard to make those loan payments, and you have to pay them every single month, and that bike is going down in value. It's a depreciating asset.
Yeah.
There's the lifestyle liabilities, right? Like, and this is one that's a lifestyle, is a home. A home is not a cash flowing asset for most people. Some people might, rent out a basement or a room or something like that. They might Airbnb it or VRBO and when they're, traveling or something. But for the most part, it's a lifestyle choice. So it comes with a liability. There is an asset, but there's no cash flow that's with it. There's also these protective liabilities, right? This could be like having an attorney on retainer. This could be your insurances that you pay for every single month. There's a liability to it, but it's there to protect the assets. But the thing that we have to look at, and this is really important, is our productive liabilities. So you could have a loan on a property that cash flows higher than what the loan is. That's all of a sudden productive because the asset's greater than the liability. Or it could be a loan on a business and you acquire a business and all of a sudden it's cash flowing more than what the loan is. And you have more value in the asset than the liability. See, too many people though, they chase net worth and they neglect cash flow.
Yeah.
So let me draw that out. See, I kind of look at it this way. Yes, the balance sheet is important. And there's the balance sheet that you see, which I would call property value. But the stuff you don't see that matters is your human life value. So human life value is who you are, like the intrinsic value as a human. And you might have liabilities like vices that you can't control, right? Like your weaknesses, the things that you're just not good at. Maybe it's operations, maybe it's numbers, maybe it's management. But you also have the human life value, which might be things like creativity, right? That's part of your human life value. It might be your financial intelligence. And so I look at what if you take the dollars and put it towards your human life value first, and then you let that grow your property value. People that are cheap skip investing in themselves, and they go right to investing in assets that are, physical assets.
Yeah.
And so, but the other piece I want you to look at is how does your income statement relate? So the income statement is your income versus your expenses. You want assets that create income. The liabilities are going to create expenses. And so don't decrease the productive ones. Like if you budget away, like, okay, let's say that I'm running ads for a book.
Yeah.
And every dollar I spend, a dollar comes back. I want to keep doing that as long as I'm still at that ratio, as long as I still have enough books to fulfill, as long as I have the way to service that. If it ever goes beyond that, then it becomes a liability. So it's a destructive because it would hurt brand and reputation. But I want to create liabilities that are productive that allow me to have assets that create income.
Yeah.
And if my entire life is how do I reduce all my liabilities and expenses, it means that my income has to do all of the work for that. It's not assets. And this is the trap that people get in time for money. They simply go, I work and I earn money and then I save.
Yeah.
And then I wait for 30 years because that's how long compound interest takes to get that extra growth curve. It's this last 10 years. The first 10, it's kind of anemic and the middle 10's okay, right? But it's really that hockey curve happens in the last 10 years. And so it's always scrimp, save, budget, delay, defer. I'm saying, what if you can get assets? What if you can get money from assets, right? Your assets creating cash flow. And then that cash flow, what if that cash flow funds your lifestyle? And then Any active dollars that you earn, any money that you earn because you're actively doing something, you take the active money to build more assets. Most people are just taking 10% of their income, if that. They're trying to get a 10% return in a diversified portfolio or an index fund.
Yeah.
And they're waiting for 30 years. This is what's known as the accumulation philosophy.
Gotcha. And so
right?
they're not using that 10% gain to fund their expenses.
They're simply using it for retirement.
Yeah.
It's a retirement model. So the retirement model has kind of three faulty notions, okay? The three faulty notions are, number one, it takes money to make money. That's something you hear people say all the time. My argument is it doesn't take money to make money. It takes human life value. It takes relationships and ideas. It takes value and exchange.
Yeah, going back to that relationship capital times.
Right. The second thing they're told is
mental
that
capital.
High risk equals high return.
Mm-hmm.
Risk means your chance of losing. So increasing your risk can actually lower your return because you have loss.
Yeah.
Or three, they're told you're in it for the long haul, right? Because they're saying it takes 30 years for compound interest. So what this is saying is they believe that wealth is a function of how much money you have, how much risk you're willing to take, and how much time you're willing to wait. That's the accumulation philosophy. So that's a trap. And that trap says you always have to work and your investments are actually an expense.
Yeah. Well, and also that trap is you will not be wealthy today. You will be wealthy in the future.
Right. And my issue with that is wealth is our ability to be present.
Yeah. Then it's the antithesis of
It's the, exactly. It's anti-wealth. Right? So I'm saying wealth is you build yourself, your skills, right? Your knowledge, your wisdom, your insights. You build your mental capital.
Yeah.
So you have more to give to the world.
Yeah. I mean, that's a very interesting way to simplify it of wealth equals being present.
Yeah. And so like I have a situation right now where it's hard for me to be present because I'm in a disagreement.
Yeah.
And there's money to be made, but I'm going to move on and do something different because we can't come to an agreement that allows me to be present. It's hijacking me being present. So it's not worth it.
Gotcha.
Even if it means I make less money, even if it means I walk away from work that I've already done, I have to ask, does this bring me joy? Does it allow me to be present?
So
do I feel fulfilled?
The value of presence for you is greater than the value of the money that would be forfeited.
Right. I don't believe in sacrificing all the joy today for the potential of joy in the future. Now, I worked out this morning. I eat really healthy.
Yeah.
I do certain things. I don't consider it sacrifice. I consider it part of the game.
Yeah.
I consider it part of the requirements to play because it helps me to feel good about myself.
Yeah.
I think that in religious context, sacrifice means to make sacred. It means to maybe give up a lesser for a greater. And I understand that. But in business, unfortunately, it's become do things that you hate today, like retirement's all about sacrifice. So that one day, someday, that's not guaranteed, you might be able to live a good life, but you create these habits of not enjoying life and in training yourself that it's not, that it's not possible and you just have to wait. And it's like that someday is not today.
Yeah. And it's like, okay, so you spend, 30 years neglecting your family and kids and all
Your
of a
health.
sudden, when you retire, they're supposed to magically be excited.
Now they're going to love you all of a sudden.
Yeah.
So that's why depth and harmony is so important.
Yeah.
Right? Look, right now I'm holding this pen. Write your script. What's the story you want to tell? What are the actions you want to take? What are the things that are worthy of your time? And it might take time to figure that out. It might take work to figure that out. I didn't love writing at first. I fell in love with writing as I developed the skill.
Yeah.
I wasn't a good speaker at first. I developed that skill over time. And it was something that I enjoyed. I actually enjoy the process of writing. It's not to write to be done with it. It's to write for the joy of writing. It's the Rick Rubin, creative act that the very act of creating the art is the gift.
Yeah. Not the final product.
Right. It's that we focus on the win is in the work. It's the journey, not just the destination. And if we fall in love with the process, then we've already won.
Mm.
And that's wealth. When you go, I've already won. Everything I do is gravy. It doesn't mean that 100% of everything you do will always go according to plan, that it'll be blissful, that we'll frolic through the fields and float like we're in nirvana. No, this is just that your vision is so compelling that you love your life.
Yeah. Regardless of what gets.
You love your life, and you'll deal with some of the minutia and some of the difficulty, because that's how we learn lessons. That's how we, but instead of going, I don't like this, but I'm just going to keep on because it pays me. And we sacrifice, but we sacrifice our energy, our presence, our love. We could become bitter.
Yeah.
Like, this is what people have been indoctrinated with, is that retirement's the dream. But I'm saying, okay, let's focus on this instead. Economic independence. Have assets to create enough cash flow to cover a lifestyle. And now you have choice. What do you want to do today? You don't have to do anything. When you go from have to get to, that's wealth.
Yeah. So let's break that down. I think it's difficult for a person who, is used to just working a job to make money. How do they shift their mind towards, how do I create assets instead of create income?
So the first place they have to invest is in their education.
Okay.
This is not a passive activity. It's not passive. It's active. Okay. So I didn't know how to invest. I had to learn to invest. I didn't know how to write. I had to learn how to write. I didn't know how to be involved in sales or do a video or any of this. This is all learning. And too many people think learning happens in the classroom. That's only part of learning.
Yeah.
Learning is a lifetime game. And so what skills do you want to develop? I mean, some people have natural talent. Other people just have the grit to figure out and become resourceful to get where they want to go. And this is the notion of just being more resourceful and having agency and not just being a victim and going, I guess I'm not, like, might be a lot harder to do this in sports. It's a lot easier to do this in business.
Yeah. So just for getting people's ideas going, what are some examples of assets that create reoccurring income versus just income?
I'm going to send you a picture that we could pull up of the first house I bought. I drove by it last week.
Okay.
3.5 hours from here. So I was 19, about to turn 20, and I bought this little townhome, right? And I rented it out to 2 other roommates, and I didn't have to put any money down because I was young and I could get a champ loan. It was my first home. Okay. And then I rented out the rooms, learned what it was like to be a landlord. And then several years later, this $96,000 property, I was able to sell for $170,000 plus. Okay. Now, that's just because I just got started.
Yeah.
I just talked to people that were in real estate, and they helped me find a property, and we penciled out the numbers. When I started my first business at 15 years old, and we can show footage of this. I think you have pictures. Garrett Gunderson's Car Care, right? So I didn't know what a balance sheet was. I didn't know what an income statement was. But Patty Rigby, one of my friend's moms, she taught me. She just trained me. I didn't know a lot about customer service. So one of my teachers, Terry Tubbs, she helped me build air fresheners and order, garbage bags and floor mats and, create little invoices in the computer lab. I just started. It was very rudimentary, but it was a start. And you just learn while you do it.
Yeah. And you were cleaning mining vehicles, weren't you?
Sometimes. Yeah, my dad was a coal miner, and when the bosses came into town, he'd clean the surface vehicles, so I helped him, and he was good at it, so he showed me what to do.
Gotcha.
Then my mom worked at a credit union, so I approached the president. I was friends with his daughter, and just said, hey, I could clean your repossessed vehicles. How much are you guys paying for that right now? I'm like, I'll do it for less.
And so that's that relationship capital where you were using, you saw a need in areas with relationships that you had.
Yeah, and here's the thing. You have to be willing to ask. It's like, what if they say no? I mean, as a kid, I guess I was just naive enough to be willing to ask.
that is the advantage.
And I remember they repossessed a vehicle that had been in Mexico that, like, people lived in this Ford Explorer It took me 2 days to clean.
Oh, geez.
There was so much garbage. I had to take the seats out of it. I had to have my dad help me, and I way underbid, and I learned a lesson. I learned through the mistake. I learned through being like, oh yeah, I thought this was a good deal, but like I was so tired by the end of the second day, but guess what? They were able to sell the vehicle for more. I was a good investment for them.
Yeah.
And, I had a money back guarantee, or I'll keep cleaning till you're happy. And I had a neighbor that, I remember I cleaned the car, took it. She's like, this isn't good enough. And then her husband drove by because they were just up the street and saw I was still cleaning the car. He's like, how long you been cleaning that car? I'm like, oh, I thought I was done, but, Julie said that it wasn't good enough. He goes, man, been married to her for a long time. It ain't ever going to be good enough, buddy. But it's like, okay, like, you learn things that you get to choose your customers and what it takes to get a repeat customer. And, it's like, you just do the work. So I just went out there and did it at a small level. Now, maybe other people are in really rough circumstances, or they're deep in debt, or they don't have parents like I did. I mean, I know there's tons of excuses, but there's so many inspiring documentaries and stories, and I watched these stories of people that were in abject poverty that became some of the biggest people in their profession and the things that they did. I watched Quincy Jones. I watched his documentary. I'm like, dude, that guy came from like the place is rubble now where he came from, and it was a really tough place. I listened to Viola Davis's book. I mean, talk about like they overcame much more extraordinary things than I had to. I just was willing to act.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are just afraid. They're like, whoa, but what if I make a mistake? Well, let me assure you, you will.
Yeah.
And not just one, make that plural. You will make mistakes.
Yeah.
Mistakes are part of the process. They're part of the learning. But here's the thing. Some people, because they're so afraid, they don't ask questions, right? And what happens is they get into what I call a forced correction. When you try to do everything on your own, when you don't tap into relationship capital, when you're not willing to ask questions, forced correction looks like bankruptcy. Forced correction looks like permanent loss. Forced correction, I believe in course corrections. Where can I learn? Who can teach me? I've always been in the game of hiring mentors and seeing people that have gone before and learning from them and having insight and growing those skill sets, whether it was writing coaches, speaking coaches, acting coaches, whether, like having you tell me a little bit about like what I could do better on video. I was like, we've just got to be willing to have feedback. But the way to get feedback is there's some people that are spectators. Mm-hmm. Spectators aren't on the court and they're critics, right? Yeah. They just say, here's what's wrong. Here's what they should have done differently. And then there's people that are on the court. They're playing the game, right? And when you're on the court, forget the critics, look for feedback.
Yeah.
Look for the people that go, here's something you could do as an outside perspective.
Yeah.
Here's something that you could learn. Here's what you did good. Here's what you could improve. And so, I mean, even the best athletes, like Craig Manning is this guy that coaches Giannis, and he's a sports psychologist, and his book, The Fearless Mind, is phenomenal. And it's like, he's like 3-to-1, get 3 positive things and 1 thing you can improve. And if you stay in that, it's scientific of what it does to the brain. And he's like, stay assertive and proactive instead of reactive. And so a lot of people just, if they even looked at that, they just overcome this kind of thinking that sabotages wealth. The thinking that says, I'm not good enough. Who am I to do it? I don't have the money. I don't have the time. I don't have the ability. All these excuses that hold people back. And the reality is that's what destroys wealth more than anything. I've made some egregious mistakes when it comes to money. I set up a hard money lending fund out of pure greed, and that thing didn't work out well at all because 2008 just confiscated, and I realized this isn't my investor DNA. I was just doing this to make money, and it's not have anything to do with purpose. And all it did was sabotage my time when I was with my family because it was relentless funding developments, and it was on their schedule, never my schedule. And I was taking my wife on vacation, but I'm on the phone the whole time working on real estate deals. And I realized that's not what my life's going to be. My life has gotten a lot more simple, and I've gotten a lot wealthier.
So you said purpose in that, and that was the second component that you had in the list of wealthy.
Yeah.
What is purpose? Like, how would you define that to people? And
I kind of have this like statement in my head all the time. How can I make purpose profitable?
Okay.
So like, what do I enjoy doing? What do I want to do more of? What do I feel I'm unique in? What do I feel I have contribution? And so purpose, like, so imagine that, for example, you just see tons of possibility. Yeah. And I'll just say each one of these circles is a possibility, right? Just possibility. Some people get so abundant and they just see so much possibility. I could do this, and they're a serial entrepreneur, or they're saying yes to so many things. But here's what happens. If you keep doing too many things, you get spread thin.
Yeah.
Right? Purpose says, hey, we're going to get laser focused. And we're going to start saying, no, these aren't right. Not these, not these, not these, not this, not this, not this. This is the sweet spot.
And you're looking at what you enjoy and where
Yep.
you feel like you're naturally.
Yeah, where I feel fulfilled, where I feel valued, where I know I can contribute, where I have energy. There's things I could do that I could present and then I could have more energy afterwards. There's things I could do where I write and I feel better at the end of it than I did at the beginning of it. I think purpose has an aspect of that where we're compelled forward, where we're excited about the outcome. We're excited about the process. We're excited about where if it's not our purpose, like maybe I'm good at certain things, but I don't love them.
Gotcha.
Dan Sullivan has a really cool model of strategic coach. And it's really what he says is some people, they start where they're incompetent. And because they're cheapskates, they always do things they're incompetent at just to save money. But it drains their energy.
Yeah.
And they always procrastinate what they're incompetent at. Then there's the things they're competent at. Right? And they can do it. But again, it's not like life-giving. It's not energetic. It's maybe not even worth their time. Mm-hmm. Then there's things they're excellent at. And this is where he says the trap is. They might do it better than anyone else they know, but it's not the thing that they're most unique in that doesn't fuel them. And at the top, there's the thing they're unique in that actually is life-giving, energy-giving, exciting. It's something that they want to talk about. It's something that they invest in, whether someone tells them to or not.
Yeah.
And most people, they sacrifice unique to save because of these things. And if you find yourself procrastinating a lot, it's probably because you're doing a lot of things that you weren't meant to do, that you don't want to do. And I get it. Like if you're starting out or you don't have the cash flow, you might have to do some of those things initially. But how do you even find an independent contractor or part-time person to move that, or AI or someone else to support you so that you're not trying to do everything on your own? Because if it's just you alone, you will have time constraints, you'll have money constraints, and you'll have ability constraints.
Yeah.
If you get others involved, now you have their time. Maybe if you have a big idea, you even have their money. Maybe definitely their ability starts to come into play so that you focus on only what's unique. And this is the game changer. I went from thinking, hey, I've got to invest in myself, to now I think I've got to invest in my team and myself.
So what's that jump? Because I find myself often getting stuck in, what
Technician.
Well, yes, that for sure. But there's things that I get asked to do again and again because I'm exceptional at them.
Yep.
But it's not what I'm unique at. How do you kind of differentiate between those, or how do you get out of that kind of exceptional trap?
Boundaries. You delegate. You find, other relationships, and you refer it out.
Oh, gotcha.
You just say no. I don't do that.
Yeah.
You create a vision that lets people know. Like people used to think, oh, Garrett's in money, he must invest in companies. No, I invest in my company.
Okay.
And when people bring me ideas, I'm like, oh, I have a big enough vision that all my resources are to build that vision. I want to liberate 1 million people to become financially independent. I don't invest in things outside of that.
Was there a time that you did invest in?
Oh, for sure.
Oh, okay.
So I had 2 IPOs when I was in my 20s. I did a hard money lending fund. I was, invested in over 100 real estate properties. I owned 20 to 100% of each of those properties. So it's like I had all these things, and what I thought they were, I really thought those were opportunities. I thought they were investments. Turns out they were just distractions.
Yeah.
Because it took me away from what I was best at.
And so I imagine people kept coming back to you and asking you to invest in companies.
And I would just say, thanks for thinking of me. That's awesome. I don't do that. But if I know someone that this is kind of aligned with them, I'll definitely make the connection.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. So you just start, and that's setting that boundary.
Right. And then, even when someone invites me to something, if I say, oh, I'm sorry, I can't make it. If that's all I say, it probably means I will never say yes. If I say, oh, I can't make it, I have another commitment, but please invite me in the future.
Yeah.
Right. Or when someone says, hey, can you help me with this? I'm like, I actually have 5 projects right now that I'm completely committed to. Thanks for thinking of me. I'll let you know if that changes, but I can't commit to it. And see, a lot of people just say other things to appease or people please.
Yeah.
right? They want to be liked, and they think the way to be liked is to say yes. But then that yes there is a no to them, and it might be no to their wealth because they can't be present because they're overcommitted.
Yeah.
You know? And so it's tough because I'd love to say yes all the time, but I have to say, is this a hell yes? Or is this just a, I want to be liked and respected yes?
That's a good distinguish. So after purpose, you then had mental. Go a little deeper into that.
Let's break this down. So this is perspective, right? So let's look at the perspective of scarcity, and let's look at the perspective of abundance.
Okay.
Because scarcity thinks if someone's profitable, it came through deception or coercion.
Yes.
In abundance, they think it came through value.
Okay.
Now, could it be sometimes that it came through deception?
Sometimes.
Sure.
But that usually doesn't
It's the
last
exception,
long.
right?
Yeah.
Scarcity is very finite. There's only so much money, but we know with abundance, there's velocity, which means money can be exchanged over and over again. And $1 doesn't just get used once and then gets thrown away. It gets used by the next person and the next person.
Yeah.
So we realize it's a more infinite game. In abundance, we see like innovation and ingenuity. In scarcity, we see fear and doubt and worry.
Yeah.
And so people in scarcity are genius at why something can't work. People in abundance are genius at making something work.
Huh. Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So in scarcity, it's like, that will never work. You can't do this. It's never been done. It's not possible. But again, like, it might not be possible for that person because it's not their sole purpose. It might be completely possible for someone else based upon who they are as a human being. And sometimes we judge based upon our limitation, not based upon someone else's possibility.
Interesting.
And scarcity sees if someone else has money, they think it's at their expense. But again, in abundance, if someone has money, we think it's because they created value.
Huh.
And look, value happens through unequal exchange. So there's things you can do in video. I don't think I could. Maybe I could learn. It would take me a long time.
Yeah.
I'd be really slow. Like the eye that you had for filming our money poem, I was like, oh my God, like it was brilliant. It was like 10x what I expected. And so by me paying you, I get something that I couldn't have had otherwise. Mm-hmm. Right? Which increases my overall wealth. But you're saying, well, this is something you do. So if someone buys like my book, they give me $20, they're saying the book is worth more than $20 or else they wouldn't buy it. I'm saying the book is worth less than $20. I wouldn't take the money. We both end up wealthier because we both end up in a better position.
It's an unequal exchange. Okay.
Right? It's unequal, and it's exchange that creates wealth. It creates wealth. And so when people are in scarcity, they destroy or slow down exchange. They think it's about cutting back. They think it's about slowing down. They think it's about reduction. People in abundance realize it's about production. It's about value creation. So they think it's about expansion. No one shrinks their way to wealth. Wealth is a game of expansion.
Yeah.
And people with a poor mindset, they find ways to take instead of give. They think small instead of big. They justify their existence instead of create value for their existence. It's like, it's a complete perspective, and our perspective determines our action. And if someone's mindset is there's not enough to go around, and they're always in complaining and blaming instead of creating. See, because two people can see the exact same situation, and one goes, that's an opportunity. The other one goes, that's just wrong and bad.
Yeah.
And it might not be great, but the one just takes the time to complain. The other one takes time to create. It's very different.
And if you're always living in a negative space, you won't have wealth.
Right. Because you'll repel it.
Yeah.
You've got the magnet the wrong way and it's pushing it away.
Yeah. And then, so next was the physical side.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that important? Because I feel like that seems very unrelated to wealth.
Look, our energy matters. If you're exhausted, if you're bored, if you're negative, like, it's not fun to be around you.
Yeah.
People that are in heavy situations and in despair, they're not bringing laughter. They're not bringing joy. They have almost no possibility. If someone's in scarcity and they have bad health, they're not going to compliment others. They're not going to be happy for other success. Like, their energy is going to be off.
Yeah.
And like, we have to have the energy to handle money, to create value, to get the money.
Yeah.
And if, I know when I had bouts where I just wasn't eating well, and then it occupied tons of my mind. Like I'd be like judging myself, like, oh, why am I doing this? And I should have worked out today, and I slept in, and I'm not eating well, and I'm feeling bad, and it just sabotages my mind. I'm not being present with the person. I'm not thinking how I can support them. I get really, for me, in a selfish place when my health's not great. I just start thinking too much about myself.
Yeah.
And I judge it's just like, it's a very negative thing. And so when I feel great, then like yesterday, I filmed 20 videos. I just felt great.
Yeah.
Filmed 20 videos. Like, I hung out with my buddy. We fixed the sprinkling system up here. That felt really cool. I had a monster workout, which I felt like really accomplished when it was over.
Yeah.
Went for walks with my wife, and, I just had the energy for that. When I don't have energy, I'm just going to like plop down on the couch and watch some TV. That's not a game of value creation.
Yeah. Yeah. And it goes back to that presence component.
Yeah.
Of when you're good with health, you can be present. Yeah. So then the last part was social.
Yeah. And this is so important. Like my wife sees this. Like when I was having my health bout and I'm like, just dealing with all this stuff in 23, she's like, you just need to go up to the cabin with your buddies. So I came up here with two of my college roommates, and dude, I was so excited to come up here, and we had the best time. Laughed so much, listened to so much good music. I mean, it was a great time. And then she's like, you should invite your high school buddies up. They came up. I just called them, yesterday and was talking to them on a drive, and it was like, hey, how you guys doing? It's like, that social aspect can be so, refreshing and rich, because there was a time where my wife's like, we're traveling too much, I'm gonna stay at home. And that was a time right around the election, and she's starting to see the world as so dangerous and negative. And I was like, you got to get out and be with some people.
Yeah.
And just for the hobby of it, just for the hangout, like not to get anything or to go anywhere, just to like hang out, just to be with someone. And it's like, she saw that in me and really promoted that. And it really was a game changer. And so, when I hang out with my friends, I tend to be happier.
And why do you think that's important to wealth?
Because I think we win when we play. What if we just use the language like change the way business is played?
Yeah.
If we start looking at it as like, how can we have more fun? How can we have more joy? Like Weston, we were around this table, like 2 weeks ago, and we creating the Money Jesus channel, and we're just laughing as we're coming up with all these ideas, and we're building out videos, and we just had a great time. And the meeting was kind of over for the day. We'd had the retreat, but then we just sat around here for a couple hours, just building stuff out, right? Just having a little bit of play. And, whether it's me doing a little comedy, adding comedy into some of my audiobook with Killing Sacred Cows, or whether it's just, adding it into some of my speeches here and there a little bit, like, man, it's just made it, I'm more approachable. People come and talk to me. People remember more. It's like, it was more fun for me.
Yeah.
It's like, I just want to invent a different way to teach finance. Didn't need permission. I didn't need someone to tell me it was okay. It was just like, hey, how do I blur the lines between work and play? That's the thing. Cause my wife was like, when I was all, separating from a company and having health problems, like you just weren't laughing as much. You just felt heavier because I was in my head. I wasn't present. And I was kind of being a victim, dude. That's the worst part about it. I was like, okay, I got to get over this victimhood thing I talk about all the time. And here I am being a victim about my situation. And as soon as I got past that, I had these breakthroughs in writing. I start, building new things. I start, building relationships. I start hanging out with my friends again. Like, I feel like the social aspect is relaxation, rejuvenation, and recreation.
No, I mean, I think it's a very profound way of looking at wealth. Is wealth equals presence.
Yeah.
Pretty mind blowing.
I mean, that's changed why I'm dealing with this, this little disagreement I have right now. Is like, I'm not going to be very present in this. So let's just move on. Let's just figure this out, because it's not worth it. Even if there's a lot of money involved, it's just not the juice isn't worth the squeeze.
Yeah. Well said.